Blessings, Goddess. It is an honor to share with you my conversation with Dakota Chanel as we share about our sacred no. We start off literally howling fiercely at the camera, calling in the shadow goddesses Sekhmet and Kali. We share about creating boundaries in life and relationships and other ways of sensual intimacy beyond sex. Dakota is a writer, a mermaid of the Magdalene and water priestess who helped assist the opening of a water temple. She currently is in the process of developing an online mystery school, and this is a deeply personal and transformative conversation, and I am so excited to share it with you. Calling in sacred boundaries, sacred rage, sacred no, no. Holding that energy into our hearts, into our womb, feeling it settle into our bodies, encoding strong boundaries, being able to speak with this fierceness, cooling it down into love, passion, knowing that true love is knowing thyself and knowing the boundaries, being able to speak them and being able to be fierce and knowing that ferocity is love. Oh my God, I love you. Oh, that's so good. Oh, yum. Wow, did you hear that crack? I did, yeah. So we just dove right into that. I wanted to introduce, this is the lovely Dakota Chanel.
That's so much more of an authentic meeting.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
We are here in her exquisite home in Kauai, and this woman has been there for me in beautiful, beautiful ways. I've been on a celibacy journey for the last 2 years. It's interesting, the light's like shining right at me. It's like this.
There's a stained glass window, and it's just like coming through and illuminating. Yes, darling, you've been on this sacred celibacy journey.
Yeah, and it's, wow. And celibacy, I'm not promoting it for everyone, but this has just been my journey. And while I was coming on 1 year of celibacy, which is really maybe on this journey of my celibacy, really I just wanted to experience a year of what it felt like to not have penetration into my sacred yoni temple. I had been dating somebody for almost 7 years, which I spoke a lot about in this course already. And I just felt like this total cleansing happening once we broke up and went our separate ways. I felt like I really wanted to know my own sacred sexual energy. Often I was relating to my own sexual energy in relation to another person, into a man. And I really wanted to know what that felt like for myself, to get in touch with it. And so I was coming up on a year of being celibate and just really not feeling like I understood why I was doing it, the depth of why I was doing it. And I had some friends who I love who were joking and calling me a nun. And that kind of really made me ask myself, like, am I repressing this energy? Am I being too pure? What is this all about? And it was Dakota that came into my life and started, well, she was sharing, I heard her speak about her sacred no and her sacred yoni temple, as well as the fluid exchange, and having those boundaries are really helpful in knowing yourself, coming into this deeper vulnerability with yourself first so that you can share that with others. And so hearing her words was this emphasis in my own life. Okay, I can still do this. You know, this is something that I am supported on doing, and that other sisters are doing it. And so I've continued this journey. I've been 2 years celibate at this point. I'm not sure when it's going to end. I do feel something shifting in my life, but so much has unfolded for me, and knowing my own body, my sexual energy, how to raise my Shakti and use it for creative processes, not just for pleasure. And so I reached out to Dakota because the codes that she holds within this sacred no, within her own boundaries that she's come to learn through many experiences in her life, I reached out to her so that she may share this. You saw we dove right into it with like Kali and Kali and Sekhmet, who are these darker goddesses. Like, we were speaking no and getting very intense with our eyes and our body language. And that's kind of scary in our society to be that fierce as women, to have these strong boundaries and say no. Like, there can be a lot of blocks and tightness when our throats to say no, which can affect all areas of our life. When we don't have healthy boundaries, it can make us overcommit and say yes to too many things and exhaust ourselves. So I just want to say thank you for agreeing to do this with me and share this medicine. And
I'm so grateful to be here, and just so delighted that you chose this journey for yourself, because it's not popular. It's not in common culture. It's not something that, like you said, there's that judgment around, oh, nuns suppressing your sexuality. And it's beautiful because we're coming out of this time of suppression. I feel like the 70s are really huge, and birth control and wild love, free love, like just have sex, like be polyamorous, like go for it. And that's beautiful. And I feel like there's a place for it, but there's also the fact of, okay, is it really right for me to share my sexual energy in this way? And coming back to knowing the self and knowing your, like you said, knowing your sexuality in relation to you, not based on anyone else.
Yes, beautiful. So we're hoping that this video brings inspiration, whether you are celibate, single, or in a relationship. Because even in relationships, like in my past relationships, often I had sex because I felt like he needed it, and I was so stressed from my week, but it was like my duty. So I would just go to the bedroom, we'd do our thing, he'd be happy, and then I'd go back to what I needed to do. And I didn't know how to really express my sexuality in other ways that felt pleasurable beyond just having sex. And so we're hoping that this video invites opportunities for us to know our own bodies and our own no's, and instead, if we're feeling no's, how else can we express this energy? What other ways can we dance and play and open?
There's so much more than just sex and penetration, and especially when we're in partnerships, sometimes the masculine can have this really, really strong sex drive, and it can be a really penetrating energy that can be challenging to say no to. And so I love what you said in the beginning. It's like coming into that aspect of this self that's able to say no and to hold those boundaries and to say, okay, this doesn't feel right, and liberating the throat, because the throat and the yoni are directly connected. And it splits off from the same tissue, like when it's forming in mother's womb, and the vocal cords mirror the ovaries. And there's just such a strong correlation between the yoni and the voice. So,
Dakota, I know in your own relationship, you said that she didn't even kiss her lover until 3 months into it, which is probably really challenging to have gone through that. But what was it like for you to have this deep pull to somebody, but still honor what you were cultivating inside and being able to express that to someone with communicating in a way that, they understood why you were doing it, or not feeling like, you were holding back too much?
Well, it's a great question. And what I found is that, so I've been in consecutive relationships since I was 15, and reached this point where I was with a previous partner and we were having sex. And all of a sudden, my yoni was just like, Dakota, I do not want anyone else inside of me. Like, I do not want to have sex for I don't know how long, but just stop. Like, you stop being in this relationship, stop making love, like, just stop. I want to know what it's like to not have any other energies inside of me for a substantial amount of time. And always been in long-term relationships. So, I'd be with a partner for a year, and then another partner for 2 years and another partner for a year and a half. And so I decided to commit myself to 9 months of self-marriage. It was about integrating my inner masculine, because what I realized is that before I started having sex when I was 14, 15, I was really creative. I was really activated. I had this drive to create, to make a difference in the world. Like, I had so many projects I was working on, books I was writing, And then after I started engaging sexually with men, my energy shifted. And I feel like my creativity was being drained isn't quite the right word, but it was in a certain way being drained, because the sexual encounters weren't coming from this pristine place of overflowing energetics. It was coming from men being like, oh, have sex with me, have sex with me. So so coming to that place of recognizing that I needed to integrate my creativity and my masculine, and have that self-marriage within to be able to bring my creativity out into the world in a bigger way. And so I committed myself to a 9-month self-marriage journey. And I wrote out my vows to myself. I wrote out all the things that I was breaking, the relationship and sexual patterns that didn't serve me, that I'd fallen into. I said, I release X, Y, and Z. And then I said, I accept an X, Y, and Z. And I wrote out the qualities that I was calling in. 2 weeks after I wrote that out, I met my partner. And
isn't that funny how
it was, I was like, okay, this is really inconvenient. And so I just was really upfront with him. And I said, hey, I just committed to this 9-month celibacy. And I wasn't even going to be in a relationship for that time, but you're here and we're so clearly meant to live together and I love you. And it would be ridiculous to say no to this, because it's so clearly, what is meant to be right now. So he said, okay, that's beautiful. And it was amazing because I've never felt so supported that way. Because normally in my experiences in the past, it would be like you were saying with your partner, oh, they want to have sex, but I didn't. Then you feel obligated, and so you do it anyways. And with this, he was so honoring and respectful. And I remember that my willpower faltered a couple times. And I was like, oh, I just want to make love. And he would be like, no, Dakota, no, you're doing 9 months.
Wow.
Yeah. And so that was really beautiful. And
just you were speaking about your throat and the yoni connected, all women's, and the fact that you spoke like where you were at and what your boundaries were to him, and he could receive that. That's so powerful.
It is. Well, there's more to the story, and I realized why he could receive it when my 9-month celibacy was over. So we didn't kiss for 3 months. And then I was like, okay, I really, we have to kiss. This is ridiculous. So then I kind of fudged my celibacy into no intercourse, no penetration, which felt really aligned with my being. So we started cultivating that energetic, and I felt such a strong polarity to make love. And so when the 9 months were up, I felt like for the first time in my life, I was really actually ready to have sex with my partner. Because so often it would just happen before we were even together, or the chemistry would just be so overwhelming. I think the longest I waited before was 3 months in a relationship to have sex, and that's back when I was 17 or something. But with this, it was so powerful because I recognized that there was this foundation of friendship and real love that I was craving before I shared my body with another person. I was craving this container of of real love, not like oh, I'm just gonna have sex with you, but we're not really committed to each other, or oh, this is fun. But I wanted a depth. I wanted it to be really aligned. And so by the end of the 9 months, it was like we'd been living together for 9 months, 8 months. We've been living together. We were best friends. We'd, gone through so much, and we're really emotionally supportive and just loving. And not in like this overly like romantic, like, oh, our phones are all making us loopy, but like a really grounded love. And so I was so ready and ripe. And I was like, okay, I'm ready to make love with you. Like, I love you. I can't wait. And he's like, I'm not ready. What? You're not ready? What are you talking about? I've never been turned down in my life. My ego was totally like, and yeah. And so I was like, okay, why aren't you ready? And because I just thought we weren't having sex because I was on my 9-month celibacy. Well, turns out there is more to the story that I didn't know until then. And it's his personal journey, so I don't want to share too much, but he had some traumas around unwanted children, and just was really scared of getting pregnant, and also felt like sex was just for procreation and had a lot of religious programming that I wasn't previously aware of. And so it's like, oh, that makes sense now why you were so extra supportive of my celibacy, because you truly want to be celibate in relationship. And I never met a man that didn't want to have sex in relationship.
Right.
And so I was like, okay, this is just a trauma. We'll work it out. We'll make love. My yoni will it'll be the best lovemaking he's ever had. He will totally change his mind. Not his mind, but like his body, like he'll understand, because he was like, oh, I don't understand the point in lovemaking. Everyone's just humping, and then it's spiritual. And I'm just like, oh, tantra. And I'm like, no, he's really gonna feel it. He's gonna feel like the love and the juiciness and the connection and the melting and it didn't happen. It didn't happen. Yeah. And so then I have had to come to terms with the realization that I love him deeply, but it's actually not my truth to be celibate forever. Right. So I realized that I attracted this partnership from celibacy, but that celibacy isn't my ultimate truth. And I challenged it. I was like, gosh, is sex only for procreation? Like, is all this like Magdalene Isis stuff wrong? And what I came to realize is that if sex was only for procreation, why are we only able to get pregnant 3 days out of the month? If sex is only for procreation, we should just be able to get pregnant all the time. Like, it's for connection, and at the highest levels, it's for spiritual embodiment. And it's been so interesting in this relationship, because he's claimed that sex, is a distraction on the pathway to God, and he's more about the monastic, monk-like celibate path. And I totally respect that, and I believe in celibacy, but I also believe in sacred sexuality and sacred union. And I believe that they are both equally valid depending on where you're at in your life and where you're wanting to go and what you're wanting to accomplish. So it came to this place of just honoring him, and then recognizing that I need to honor myself, because I do want to be in a relationship where I am able to express all of my love in physical form. So.
And I love what you're saying. It's making me want to just bring to the surface that, so we've been on this journey together in this Juicy Feminine Living program, and so much is about the wounds of the feminine and the shame that we're holding, the sexual shame, even trauma and abuse. And so often we feel that as women. I mean, right now with the Me Too movement going on, and so much coming to the surface as the feminine has risen and how that's impacting us. And so men's connection with pornography and watching a DVD at a young age and seeing that sexual connection from there's so much that the masculine is also holding too. And so hearing from you, what was going on with him and his infrastructure and relationship was a catalyst for him to look at those deeper pieces as well.
Yeah.
And for that to come to the surface and this deeper connection of friendship that you both had so that you could talk about those things.
Yeah.
Because also what came up when you were speaking is so often, that 3 to 6 months can be a honeymoon phase where you meet somebody, you have all this attraction, you make love,
sex,
and
so happy, and then the shadow comes.
And then the shadow comes, and like the hormones that we're all like, oh my God. You're like, wait a second, this person does this?
Yeah.
I don't think I can do that.
Yeah, no, you're not clean enough.
Yeah, and yes, all this comes up, all the mess.
Yeah.
And then we really start to look at that, and we're like, I don't think that this person's compatible with me. But oftentimes when we've already experienced a deep part of ourselves with them, such as the lovemaking, and they've been in the space with us, if they don't feel like, I'm like clearing right now.
Yeah, me too.
We've been clearing a lot through our throats lately. This is big stuff that's coming up. But after this honeymoon phase, if we feel like we've already had that really deep, intimate connection with them in our sacred yoni temples, it can be harder to create those boundaries that maybe this relationship isn't in my highest alignment. So sometimes jumping in so fast can be challenging if we suddenly don't feel like we're fully in resonance with it anymore, to kind of bring ourselves back and say, okay, well, what is truly mine? What is truly theirs? And what do I truly want? So,
and that's part of the mixing the DNA piece, because when you engage sexually with someone, even if you're just kissing, saliva is filled with your DNA. So you are exchanging codes on such a physical, biological level. So it's natural that you actually have withdrawals from someone when you engage, even if it's just kissing, and especially if you're engaging with your sacred sexual fluids that create other human beings. Like that is a whole other level of, people say cords, and that's not quite how I see it. It's more like mixing waters, like streams, but still it's mixed. So you're being aware that when you allow someone into your being on those deep biological levels, and that maybe there's those other pieces that aren't aligned, that can be hard to fully commit to what you know that you deserve, because you're so physically connected to this person, biologically and emotionally, all those ways.
Yeah, and I can think of so many times, like in college, let's give that example, like the amount of times I kissed somebody while I was just wasted, like whatever.
Yeah,
and I think
casual
kissing, which I believe kisses are beautiful, and I think it's really our consciousness, how we are seeing ourselves when we are sharing our sacred fluids with another person, how we're feeling connected to our own bodies, our own sacred no's and sacred yeses, connected to spirit, honoring them, respecting them.
Yes.
And being in that place when we share, and consciously being in that space while we share.
Oh, exactly, Allie. That is so it. Yeah, because it's really about, like we said, knowing thyself. In all the ancient mystery schools, that's what's written above the door. Know thyself. So know your soul. Like, is this a full yes? Like, is this kiss, is this touch, is this experience a full yes for me? And if it's not, like you said earlier, it's not a full yes, it's a no. If there's that little bit of, oh, I'm not sure, maybe no, that is a no. That is not a yes. And even though you might like, oh, I should justify it into a yes because it would be easier and more convenient and it wouldn't be so challenging, that's not where the soul growth is. That's not where you living your most juicy, empowered, and magical life is. That's in playing out old patterns that don't serve anymore. And I have a confession. I'm guilty of this, even just up to last week. So in just sharing a little, a real story, like, so with this experience with, my partner, when he does want to make love, there's this part of me that's like, oh my God, he wants to make love. Like, okay, of course I'm ready. Like, yes, I'm ready. Like, let's do it, because it's so rare. Like, I don't want to miss the opportunity. And recognizing how many times I've compromised, like, even though all the things are like, yes, we're great friends, we're all these things, I think it's all perfect but how many times I've compromised my actual sexual authentic expression because of a mental construct because of feeling like, oh, I don't want to miss this. And even though this isn't like what I normally would accept as the highest octave of what I know is possible in my own sexuality, I'm still going to say yes because I love him so much and I love our connection. And so I've just come to this place where it's like, oh, no, this is like another form of celibacy because being a virgin is about, it's not about not having sex. It's about being, virgin means a woman unto herself, one unto yourself. So you are committed and married and whole unto yourself. And so from that place of knowing yourself and being authentically true to your essence, that is where we can make empowered sexual choices. And I realized I had to disconnect myself from penetration to know that, to feel that, to understand that, because my first sexual experience, I was, you know, handcuffed to a bed and recognizing like, okay, what patterns in my sexuality are actually me and what's programming, what's things I picked up from along the way. And I don't know the answer to that. I'm still on this journey. I'm still discovering. But I know that celibacy and knowing myself and knowing my sacred no and my sacred yes have been so transformational and key to unlocking the doorway to what I feel sex really is. And I don't believe it's just for procreation. And I don't believe it's just some meaningless thing that we can just do with anybody and it doesn't matter. You know, but I believe that it can actually be a spiritual tool for the deepest kind of alchemical transformation in the body. And for actual embodiment, auric halos and magic. And that is what I claim for myself, nothing less. So,
aho!
Yes.
For all the women,
all
maybe
of us.
experience that, and all the men.
Yeah. And being whole, and not thinking that the sexuality is it's not coming from a place of lack. Like, oh, I'm not just coming from that place of pulling, but coming from an overflow.
Yeah, not the need to fill a void of like betrayal or self-worth stuff, or like it's a hard day that like not feeling something, but like you said,
it's so uncomfortable to sit with depression, to sit with sadness, to sit with anger, to sit with all of those uncomfortable feelings. We're just like, oh, I don't want to be with myself right now. And that's where the gold is. That's totally where the gold is. So yeah, coming into self-pleasure.
Yeah, so part of like earlier in this course, we were eye gazing with ourselves in the mirror to really build this state of intimacy, which is something we can do with partners. But we wanted to share a couple ideas and tools for you all. If you are in a committed relationship or you do have a partner and you don't, want to stop making love, but you're like, I kind of want to explore what it feels like to maybe not always go to the bedroom and make love. Like maybe you're in your luteal phase and your bleed is about to come and you don't feel turned on, or maybe you've just had your bleed and you're in your follicular phase and you want more play and more of that, building up the juices in the bedroom. So I would love to share something that I just experienced in the Sisterhood of the Rose retreat that Shona led. So in one of the practices, I was in the kitchen very much in my masculine, like time, make this food, put this on the table, it needs to be warm. And then I would go into the main room and be led through these very like receptive shamanic, tantric breathwork practices and embodiment practices. And it was such an interesting like polarity to go from masculine cooking to sensual and hearing Leola and her accent, like surrender into the vulnerability. I'm like, it was so fun. But one evening, I was not thinking I could do it because I had so much work to be done. And everyone's like, Ali Ma, come to the floor. So I ended up partaking in this most amazing practice with Dia, who was my assistant in the cafe. And she's like, Ali, come be my partner. So we practiced on each other. One of us blindfolded the other person, and we had this beautiful music, and Shona was leading the whole process. And in it, we had a macaroon that I made, a lime coconut lavender macaroon, and then mango slices. We also had peacock feathers and roses and crystal singing bowls. And so the person who was blindfolded, the other person would play with all of our senses, would, spread the mango, teasing our lips, would put the coconut crumbles like all over us, would tickle us with the feathers and put the rose up to our nose and to our hearts and just like dancing all over us. And for me, like when we gave, it was super fun because we're just playing with their energy field and their giggles, and when their body was like yes, or when their body back, we'd slow down. And then being blindfolded really brought me into a place, because I was blindfolded first, from cafe go 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 to okay, here I am blindfolded and I am to just receive. And what does this feel like to smell this beautiful rose or the mango and taste it and feel the softness on my lips or feel the tickle on my shoulder of the feather. And that was such a truly exquisite experience. And I think that that would be something amazing to offer to your partner, because with these lovemaking practices, truly we're just looking for connection, and not always do we have that connection when we make love. Like maybe they, have their orgasm or release, and maybe us women, we don't, or maybe we need the vibrator in order to get to that place. So actually maybe taking a step back from those end goals and instead be in this play and experiencing our sensuality and playing with our partner in this way and really building it up, maybe then it does turn into lovemaking, or maybe it is just about the play and the vulnerability and the spontaneity and the excitement in that. So I wanted to share that, and if any ideas are popping up for you, Dakota, as a way to become into your sensual state with your partner, or even yourself, what are some ways that you feel like you connect with that?
Well, first off, whoa. I just want to say that I'm so happy you shared that, because that's exactly what I was going to share. I hold sensoriums, and that's what I always recommend, because it's about getting in touch with the senses of the body. So really tuning in and actually being in your body, because a lot of times what happens is we're so busy, right? We're running around, go, 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 like Ali said, do mode, kitchen, that we're not actually here. Once the time happens, it comes to make love, we're in the bedroom or wherever, it's like we're not really in our body. So of course we're not feeling turned on. Of course we're not feeling juicy. We're stressed out, like whatever's going on, right? So what can be done to melt away the past, future, thoughts, and completely one with the moment? And the doorway that I found works best for me is the senses, because it connects us with the here and now. So when you feel that touch and you're really present with the feather on your skin and you're really breathing that, it pulls you into the moment. That feather, that's not yesterday, that's not tomorrow, that's right now. That mango on your lips, it's right now. And it's sensual, so it brings you into your body. So I recommend creating a sensorium for your lover, or even a girlfriend. I love to hold sisterhood sensoriums, and we do this with big groups of women. And so you can make a platter of sensory objects. So feathers, dessert, herbs, essential oils, crystals, seashells, tuning forks, velvet, whatever yummy tactile things that feel really good for you. And then the key is that one person gives and one person receives for an allotted amount of time. So even if it's just 15 minutes each, a half hour total, and you lay your partner down and you just adore them, you feed them their senses, and you call them into their body, you call them into the moment, and then they do the same for you. And from that place, the juice, the love, the yum that happens, it's like, okay, pretty much always want to have sex after that. But even if you don't, just snuggling in that space is so yummy and so delicious and so nourishing. And what I've found is that men don't often have these experiences of being sensual, because it's a lot more socially acceptable for women to be sensual. Like we're all huggy, lovey-dovey, snuggle, like, oh, I love you. When do you ever see men do that? Like, oh, I love you, bro. Oh, it's like, hey, great job. Yeah. Ooh. And so you are their invitation. Like, of course they're going to just be in their programmed responses unless they're taught otherwise. So it's an invitation for you to bring this awareness of the sensuality, and guarantee they're going to love it. so massage and just, yeah, and play and enjoy. Baths, oh my God, sensual baths for lovers are like so good. Play with a shower head with each other, just like gently stroke each other, pour water on each other's bodies. Bath time together, rose petals, essential oils, that crystals. Oh, that is really good for love making.
Renting an Airbnb too, that's something that I'm thinking is like if they have children and their house is just like chaotic and a mess, if you just need to get away and have like a sitter or a friend or your mother come over and just take a night to reclaim that and not worry about the kitchen or the mess or anything.
Or if your 3-year-old's gonna, come in, wake up. Yeah. It's a journey. It's a whole different journey when you have children, but in a long-term partnership.
Something you were talking about, you were mentioning about, even if you do these practices and you still don't feel like you want to make love and how that's completely okay. I think it's important to talk about like time and our thoughts about time. So often when we're in the mood for something, and this has been my challenge with being celibate, there have been men that, we're rubbing up and dancing on each other. And maybe like for me in my celibacy, it's just been no penetration. I have made out with some very beautiful man gods. But there's like this essence of time. It's like, if I don't go further now, will I ever have this opportunity again? And it's this lack kind of energy and this pressure of time that makes us think that like right now is the time and we have to do it now. And this universe is so abundant in time. Like time is non-existent, so we can expand it or contract it depending on our mood and our thoughts. And so knowing like if you're not a full yes, or if you kind of want to make love but you're not sure you really want to, knowing that there's always time for another time, and if it doesn't work out with that person in particular, you are honoring yourself, and in the future something more aligned will be attracted to you, which will honor your time and your boundaries and honor their time and their boundaries, and it will be a beautiful exchange in a way that feels right for everyone involved. And
beautifully said, Allie.
Thank you.
That's the truth, because it can be like, oh, this will never happen again, and it's true, it won't. The moment will never happen again like that, but there'll be an even better one that'll come along if you keep aligning with your authenticity of your soul.
So coming back a little bit to the beginning of our video, with that, I'm like really excited to watch what we looked like.
Probably hilarious.
Oh, should I tell about the pig, the boar?
Yeah, tell them the pig.
Okay. Yes. So something that happened to me while I've been here in Kauai, I've been waking up very early to go to the retreat kitchen, and it's been completely dark outside. So 2 of the mornings actually while I was walking, and again, it's completely dark. I can't see anything. Even my phone, when I lit the flashlight, I couldn't see out into the bushes. But I would hear this animal like, rah, rah, like super loud. The first time it scared me, and I had adrenaline moving throughout my whole body. I stopped. I sent a message to Chanel Barron, who's here at the house. I was like, Chanel, there's like some wild animal howling at me, and I need to go to work. So the first time I felt this adrenaline and this feeling of being scared, but knowing I had a commitment to go to the retreat center and start cooking for everybody to have things, prepared. So what happened was we had been working with Sekhmet and Kali a lot, and our sacred rage, we call it our sacred rage, like expressing that so it's not just like manifesting as pain and trauma and cysts and fibroids in our ovaries and our reproductive system, but expressing that so it can come through and we can claim that energy of our nose and our boundaries. And so I had been very much like expressing that energy. So I speak back to this boar. I think I learned later that it's a wild boar, and I'm like, I have to go to work. And I was like kind of quiet at first, but I was like, I have to go to work, and it's like, and I'm like, I have to go. And I like built up this energy in me, and it let me pass. And I was really surprised that I had walked past. I just walked past so carefully, so like on guard in my own like energy container of like rage and cautiousness, and it let me go. The next morning, no problem. The last morning, the same thing happened, and I was leaving a voicemail for my friend on Marco Polo, so I actually listened to it. I listened to the whole process after it happened, but as soon as that animal was like, I was like, rah, rah, like right back to it. I was like, I have to go to work, and I'm literally like this rage coming out of me, and it let me go. It let me go fast. and I walked through. And later, I'm pretty sure I saw the animal in the day a couple of days later, and it was pretty big. And I'm not saying like mess with Mother Nature. You know, we do need to be respectful for animals. But somebody at the retreat asked me, have you looked up a boar through animal totem medicine or what that means? And I didn't look it up, but I realized that this wild boar was actually helping me clear this being able to practice my no and my strong boundaries, because my whole life I lived in a very I would call it a safe neighborhood. I lived in a cul-de-sac with we knew all of our neighbors. I felt very safe growing up in my childhood, very protected. And I had this whole energy growing up that nothing can ever hurt me. No one could take advantage of me. And I have had someone try to attack me before, and I fought them off. So that has occurred, but I've never been attacked in a way that felt that I was violated internally. And it wasn't until I started traveling around the world that I started to look at that and was like, am I really safe? This feeling that I've had my whole life that I know that I'm safe. This is a whole foreign country with with a different language, and I don't know where I am, and I'm alone. Am I safe? And starting to question that internal trust and safety, and thinking, if that situation ever presented it to myself, where somebody came at me, what would I do? And I think this boar was giving me an opportunity to allow that dark goddess energy to practice and to come up, to see what I sound like when I'm in that strong, this is who I am and these are my boundaries, and to feel that. And dear God, I hope that never happens to me, but at least walking on this earth as a woman, I feel that I do have swords in my back pocket now that I can express loudly if something were to ever come to me, and hoping that would be enough. And I think that's what the boar was here to share with me, and so honor the sacred boar medicine. Beautiful. Thank you for letting me share that with all of you.
Sharing that. Yeah, it's interesting because I hadn't actually run into a boar until a couple days ago.
Oh my God!
I was on this island for 2 years. I was walking from this room to the main house, and it was right there with 2 babies. But instead of it was the female. So it was interesting because we were both scared of each other.
Yeah.
So instead of the boar egg or she was like, ah! And she ran off, and I was like, ah! And I ran off. So it's cute to just see the
animal medicine.
Yeah.
Oh, beautiful. Well, do you feel like there's anything else we want to share with our ladies?
I guess one thing is, even if you don't know how to say it, even if you're unsure how to say the no, or it's oh, this just kind of sounds awkward coming out, just do it anyways. It's gonna take time. If you've had your boundaries crossed sexually in your life, and had to any degree, even if it's just your lover's touching your clit too hard, and you don't tell him that he needs to lighten up, it is having the courage to voice it and not being afraid of how they'll respond. Because a lot of times, it will hurt their ego, because guys all want to think they're the best lover in the world, but approaching it from a way of, and recognizing that if it's real love, if this man really does love you, then he'll really want to hear you, and he'll really want to listen to your sacred yes and your sacred no. And do you want to share your body with someone who doesn't?
Wow, I feel emotional just hearing you speak that. It is so beautiful, and it is medicine.
It's hard.
It is hard, and as women, this is where we're at right now with the feminine rising, and everything is being able to speak this. And when you start to say your no, if you have colds come up and sore throats or things change in your life,
sick, you get anxiety, all kinds of physical reactions.
Yeah. But it's a clearing, it's an upgrade, and know that you're not alone. We're here, we get it. Other women get it too. We are all in this together.
And this is the thing, is the revolution of this time isn't coming through the government. It's coming from us. It's coming from you. It's coming from you. It's you are it. Are you going to hold yourself to that standard that you wish to see around you in the world? Are you going to hold yourself, your man, your men, your children? Are you going to raise to that level that is possible with sexuality, and be committed to it, even if it's hard, or even if it takes uncomfortable conversations? have the courage to do that and know that you are a revolutionary and that we're all doing this together. I just have goosebumps.
Me too.
And that this is the medicine of the times, and this is how we're going to change the world, because sexuality, this is a whole other tangent, but sexuality is how we all got here. We all got here through a man and a woman having sex. Every single one of us. That's what we all have in common. And so when we heal our sexuality, we heal the core of humanity. So it's not something to just brush off. It's not more important than your work. It is work. You know, it's all of our responsibility.
For our mothers, our grandmothers, and children, 7 generations before and after.
It's another piece. A lot of times, like my sexual, things I've had to work with, a lot of it's actually from my ancestors. Because my mom was so protective of me, right? So protective until I got to be a teenager. So I didn't have childhood sexual trauma, but she did. And, didn't fully process through it. So also be aware that when you start to do this deeper work, that stuff that can come up, and it might not be yours. It might be ancestral, might be karmic, might be collective. So just, having that.
Exactly. And when we do this work, I've been on this path doing intuitive womb healing sessions for women, but when I started doing it to myself, I literally felt, my grandmother came to me, my deceased grandmother came to me, and I wanted to work with the snake energy with her, and she was not open to it, even in her deceased state. But we worked with roses, healing and upgrading occurred. And I felt like this black snake like pulled this stuff out of me. And then energetically, I felt my mother's womb shift. And then I saw my mother a week later over Thanksgiving. And I want to share on camera, but my mother, for the first time in my life, she came to me and she said, how do you know when not to tell somebody what to do or not to give them advice? And my mother's been very like vocal her whole life, do this, do that, that's not right, this is right, you shouldn't do that. And for the first time in my life, she came to me and we came up with this little, because she didn't know when she was doing it. It was an unconscious behavior. And we came up with this little code that anytime she tried to tell my father, my brother, or me what to do, I would cough. I'd go like, and then it would remind her that she was doing it so she could become aware of it. And we played this game, and it was her idea. And
precious.
Yeah, she told me to cough. She was like, well, what if you cleared your voice? And I knew that it was directly related to the work that I had been doing with my own sexuality and this womb clearing and the healing of my ancestry. And with her, like, taking down the masks, because truly trying to control and tell others what to do. It's just a feeling inside that we're not safe, and that we need to make sure everything around us is operating well, so we feel like things are operating safe within ourselves. So it takes a lot of vulnerability. And she came to me as her daughter and asked me to share that, to show her when to not, give advice, things like that. And I basically just told her, I said, Mom, if somebody comes to you and asks for advice, then give advice. And then just don't,
or ask. Would you be open to hearing feedback?
Right.
I feel like this is actually, I'm really happy you shared that, because it ties in beautifully to the sexuality piece and talking to, potential partners or lovers. Like when you're being really honest, like patterns get ingrained, especially with sexuality. Like you can get in ruts. And sometimes it can be really important to approach it from a place of, could I share some feedback around, our sexual experience, and be like, can we create a time that, like, sometimes in the moment, like, it can be tricky, because it's always good to, remain aligned with, if you're not feeling it and you need to stop, what's happening, to stop it. But sometimes it's actually greater once you let the pattern kind of settle. So
yeah, what Dakota was saying is, sometimes when we're so in it, in our pattern, when we're feeling angry at each other, it's easy to be like, you should do this, or you're doing this wrong, or you should treat me like this way.
Exactly.
But instead, like, breathing in and feeling what we're feeling and saying, can I share with you how I'm feeling? Are you open to hearing how I'm feeling? And it kind of puts the ball in their court so that they could say, no, I'm not in a place to receive right now, or okay, yes, yeah, please share with me, and it kind of takes away that like control element when we're feeling so intense.
Charged. Because a lot of times with sexual stuff too, there can be pain and traumas, and it can be easy to lash out in anger or to retract, into like freeze mode. And so being able to find that balance of communicating and saying the sacred no, but doing it from a place that's kind, that's compassionate, that's loving. It's all about the love. It's all about the love. What else? Yeah. what else are you doing it for? You know?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So,
Anyway, why are we in relationships? I hope to learn to love ourselves and each other more.
mm-hmm. Well, thank you, sister. This
Yeah,
is just
thank
exquisite.
you,
And
Allie.
I feel like we shared even more than I thought we would be able to. Like, I
Oh,
feel like a lot
beautiful.
just came out that needed to come out for everyone and for us too. You know, we're
Yeah.
all in this together, and
That's for sure.
we love you.
Yes.
We encourage your sacred no
And your sacred yes.
and your sacred yes, all the juicy magic. So
Yeah.
we're sending massive
Mm.
love to all you beautiful
Yeah.
goddesses, encouragement and support on this journey.
So much love.
Much love.
Yeah.